Movie scenes start with Father Peter entering a dimly lit room where Sister Magali lies bound to a bed. She has been possessed by a devil named Balban, causing her face to be distorted. Upon seeing her condition, Peter insists that they have to perform an exorcism as soon as possible. He then calls his superior, Father Michael, and asks for his permission. The latter vehemently refuses, believing he is not skilled enough to handle such a situation. However, Peter disregards his order and proceeds with the exorcism anyway. He sends everyone out of the room and sets up a camera to record the process. With determination, Peter prepares to confront the evil that has taken hold of Sister Magali. As soon as he starts reading prayers, Magali's bed bounces in the air. However, she is so strongly possessed that the exorcism has no effect on her. Rather, the devil starts undressing and seduces Peter, who tries to control himself and continues his spells. He sprinkles holy water on her body, but it has no effect on her. Soon, Magali makes herself half naked and starts pleasuring herself in front of him. As soon as she completes her deed, a demonic scream can be heard and Magali falls on the bed. Believing that he has cured her, Peter goes to check, but she suddenly gets up and leads his hand into her private parts. Peter also can't control himself, and he ends up having coitus with her. This turns out to be a bad decision as the devil enters his body and possesses him as well. The scene then shifts 18 years later in a prison, where a guard goes about his routine of collecting food trays from the cells. But as he reaches into one cell, a shocking moment unfolds. 2 of his fingers are bitten off by the prisoner inside, causing absolute chaos. We are then taken to Father Peter, who has now started living in the countryside of Mexico. Ever since the incident, he has been guilt-ridden. So, he devotes much of his time to an orphanage, taking care of the kids. One day, while distributing food, he is approached by a worried mother. She takes him to her sick son, Felipe, who seems to be suffering from a strange disease. Peter blesses him with holy water, but this only causes the boy to have a seizure. As a last resort, he is rushed to the hospital. Dr. Nelson then examines Felipe and reveals that 4 children have already died in the same fashion. But no one has been able to identify the disease or its cure. Later, Peter goes to a church to seek solace, and Dr. Nelson joins him. Peter believes that God is punishing him for his past misdeeds by making those around him suffer. Nelson tries to make him understand that he was under the possession of the devil when he committed the sin, but Peter still thinks it was avoidable. He then finally decides to confess with Bishop Monsignor Balducci, as he thinks it is the only way he can attain peace. In the next scene, Peter goes to the bishop's residence and prepares to hand over the recorded tape of the exorcism. But Balducci surprises him by revealing that the Vatican regards him as a saint. He then presents Peter with a generous check for his orphanage. Overwhelmed by the gesture and the substantial amount, Peter hesitates and ultimately decides to withhold the confession. Later, we see Peter in his room, cursing himself for the sin he committed 18 years ago. Just then, he hears a scream coming from the church. He goes inside to check, only to discover the statue of Christ missing from its place. Peter then looks around the place and soon hears someone crying in the corner. When he approaches the person, he is shocked to find the demonic form of Jesus Christ. It suddenly launches an attack on him, and this is when Peter jolts awake from his nightmare. Shortly after, a prison officer calls him and reveals that one of their inmates is acting very strangely. She is refusing to eat and demands to meet with him. This concerns Peter, so he immediately rushes to the prison. Upon entering the cell, he learns that the girl's name is Esperanza, and she has already killed an officer. When Peter sees her face, he realizes that she is not sick, but possessed. The crazy girl then starts speaking in a provocative manner, just like Magali did 18 years ago. This means that she is possessed by none other than Balban. Later, Esperanza's mother arrives there, and she reveals herself to be Magali. She then drops a bombshell. The crazy girl inside the cell is Peter's daughter too. Magali urges him to save her if he really wants to get over his guilt. At night, Peter is once again tormented by the demonic form of Jesus Christ, who begins to choke him in his sleep. But he somehow manages to wake up and calm himself down. The next morning, Peter meets with Balducci and presents him with the report on Esperanza's condition. He requests permission to perform an exorcism on her. Balducci not only says yes, but also summons another priest so they can get rid of the demon ASAP. The scene then cuts to Father Michael, who has arrived in Mexico to assist in the exorcism of Esperanza. It is revealed that he is one of the best exorcists in the world, and the only person who previously defeated Balban. That night, Peter cannot bear the guilt anymore, so he burns the tape recording of Magali's exorcism. Through a flashback, we learn that he was actually possessed by Balban when the incident took place. He was forced to have coitus with Magali and impregnate her. But Peter somehow managed to get rid of the demon by repeatedly chanting God's name. In the present, he confides in Father Michael about how he's been seeing a demonic version of Jesus Christ. No matter how hard he tries to escape, he just can't. Upon hearing this, Father Michael suspects that Balban is trying to possess him. Inside the church, a nun named Camilla is praying to Mother Mary when a few droplets of blood suddenly land on her forehead. She quickly opens her eyes, only to realize that the statue has vanished. Camilla then starts hearing strange noises and finds a cloth on the ground, surrounded by blood. As she lifts it, she discovers the lifeless body of a child underneath. This freaks her out, and she starts screaming for help. At this moment, the statue of Mother Mary appears and moves towards her, appearing possessed. She then pulls the poor nun into the darkness, corrupting her as well. After a while, a possessed Camilla bursts into the children's room to inflict damage on them. Magali tries to stop her from advancing any further, but she's easily overpowered. Fortunately, the priests hear the commotion and rush to save the day. They quickly put their divine skills to work and somehow manage to expel the demon out of Camilla's body. In the next scene, Michael and Peter visit the prison and confront Esperanza. The two priests attempt to engage Esperanza in conversation to glean more information about the demon, but she only responds with lewd remarks directed at Father Peter. Despite their combined prayers, Esperanza breaks free from her chains and viciously attacks Father Michael, biting off his ear before being subdued with a sedative injected by Dr. Nelson. Following the incident, the priests urgently discuss with the warden the necessity of performing an exorcism within the prison. However, the warden refuses, citing the presence of dangerous inmates. With no other options, Dr. Nelson proposes sedating all the prisoners to facilitate the exorcism, a plan reluctantly accepted by the priests. The next morning, Dr. Nelson begins administering the sedative to the prisoners, but one manages to steal the keys and hide them. Despite this setback, they proceed to Esperanza's cell for the exorcism, only to find her missing. Meanwhile, Dr. Nelson discovers that all the prison cells have been unlocked and is attacked by a possessed girl. Amidst chaos, the priests find Dr. Nelson injured and surrounded by possessed prisoners. Despite their attempts to banish the demons with prayers, they prove ineffective. The situation worsens when a possessed form of Mother Mary appears, leading to a confrontation where Dr. Nelson sacrifices himself to buy time for Father Michael and Peter to escape. Alone and cornered, Father Michael confronts Peter about his hidden sin, revealing that Esperanza is his daughter, conceived while trying to save Magali 18 years ago. Shocked by this revelation and burdened by his past deal with Balban, Father Michael succumbs to his injuries, leaving Peter with a final warning. Determined to atone, Peter records a confession and sends it to Balducci before confronting the possessed prisoners. Strengthened by his resolve, Peter's prayers subdue the demons, culminating in a showdown against the demonic Jesus. Despite appearing victorious, Peter is ambushed and subjected to a reverse exorcism by Balban. In excruciating pain, Peter's own prayers thwart Balban's exorcism, while at the orphanage, the children suffer from the demonic presence. In a desperate bid to save them, Peter accepts Balban's deal, expelling God from his body. As a result, Esperanza and the children are freed from possession. Peter is hailed as a hero by the media, but in private, Balducci reveals his complicity in deleting Peter's confession. Unbeknownst to all, Peter is now possessed by Balban, with plans to extend her influence far beyond the prison walls. Thank you for watching my videos.